Senator Van Hollen, you made it just under the wire. You are our last set of questions for this expert panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Rosen, and to all of you, thank you for your testimony today. Ambassador Shapiro, it's good to see you. I think, as you've indicated in your testimony, it's very important at some point to convert military gains into sustainable political strategic gains. And that also is true with respect to the changes in Syria, and I want to get to that in a moment. First, I do want to focus on Gaza, because President Trump came to office saying on day one he was going to end the war and get the hostages released, and here we are many months later, and we're not there yet. And in fact, more civilians are starving to death in Gaza today than at any point previously during this war. And you testified with respect to this entity that's been established, the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Clearly not working, clearly broken. I'm just looking at the headline: the UN chief slams U.S.-backed Gaza aid operation, quote, "It is killing people." Mr. Chairman, I'd like to include in the record a very short statement from the World Food Program about an incident just the other day where they were trying to deliver food into Gaza.
So included.
People got killed. And just in today's Haaretz newspaper, they say that this centers have become death traps. Every day, dozens of people are killed, usually by Israeli soldiers who try to control the mobs with live fire. To date, more than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed at distribution centers en route to them or near trucks carrying food. Ambassador Shapiro, I saw your testimony, and I agree with your point that we need to replace this with a system where we kind of flood the zone with food. Could you just elaborate on your idea?
Thank you, Senator. So the problem the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is trying to solve is a real problem. That is Hamas hijacking food for its use and to use as a method of political control. I think Hamas bears the lion's share of blame for the hunger that many Palestinians are experiencing. But the way the foundation is designed, it's in very limited locations. It requires Palestinian civilians to transit long distances over land and near Israeli military positions. And as you said, it's caused numerous incidents where people have been killed, probably sometimes by Hamas, but sometimes by Israel's own admission, by Israeli fire as well. So it's not working. It can be part of a broader solution. The flood the zone strategy could include more distribution points for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. One of the problems is those distances people have to travel, and they're only really clustered in the south with one central location. But if they were across the full territory of the Gaza Strip, and it was accompanied by an additional zone flooding by other resources, what it does is it reduces, by market value, the monetary value of that aid, and it reduces Hamas's ability to use it for political control, as well as making more aid available to people. It's not going to completely solve the problem, because Hamas will always take its cut. And that is a legitimate problem that the Israelis have highlighted, but the way this is structured, it's just too dangerous, and it isn't working the way to solve the problem the way it needs to be solved.
Yeah, look, nobody wants to see any food aid diverted to Hamas for its gains. There's no clear information that somehow this food is not also getting to Hamas, and I would just refer you and others to the statements of our former Ambassador Satterfield and Cindy McCain, who said that there's been in the old system, there was no systematic diversion to Hamas. They found no evidence of it, despite asking the Israeli government for proof many times over. Quickly turning to Syria, I was glad to see the Trump administration lift the embargo, the blanket sanctions, but I did argue that we should put in place immediately snapback provisions tied to making sure they hit standards, including protecting minority populations. We've seen these awful killings in the South and other parts of the country, Alawites, Druze, Christians, and others. So do you think that the Trump administration should do a better job of being clear as to what activities will cause the sanctions to go back into place?
Senator, I do. I think the gamble, it is a gamble to lift sanctions as quickly and as fulsomely as President Trump announced in Saudi Arabia. But I think it's the right gamble to give this transitional government a chance to find its footing. But it has to be held accountable in all the ways you described, how it treats minority populations, inclusive governance, obviously corruption, and things of the like. When we see what happened recently with massacres of the Druze population, and maybe earlier there were some in the Alawite areas, that needs to be properly flagged as something that if it continues, there has to be maybe some off-ramp or some trajectory that will not lead to the full lifting of sanctions. Of course, Congress will have its say, and you might be able to build in some off-ramps or some rather snapback provisions on those congressionally instituted sanctions that you'll have to legislate to remove, so you may have an opportunity there. It also, when we see that kind of brutality against one civilian population or one minority population, it raises doubts about for all of them, and in particular the Kurds who manage the counter-ISIS efforts and the detention facilities in northeast Syria and are to help sustain them. Their willingness to take that next step toward peaceful reintegration into Syrian national institutions will clearly be up for grabs and maybe not be able to happen if the Syrian central government is not living up to those commitments. So I do think it should be very clear what our expectations are, and there should be some conditionality for the full implementation of the lifting of sanctions.
Thank you, and I appreciate your bringing up the Syrian Kurds who have been our allies in the fight against ISIS, and we need to keep our commitments to them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.